Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Live from Wespath. I want to thank you for joining us. We are coming to you live from our beautiful Wespath headquarters in Glenview, Illinois, and you can see we've transformed our Wesley Hall area really into a studio. And in the studio, we are constantly reminded of our core values, important words like stewardship, mutual respect, and teamwork, as we really live every day into our mission of caring for those who serve. My name is Bob Christoffel, and I have the pleasure of being your co-host today. I also serve as the manager of benefit education here at Wespath.
Welcome to Live from Wespath. My name is Rachel Miller, and like many of you joining us today, I'm a clergy person from West Ohio, serving as the Client Relations and Outreach Manager here at Wespath. Bob, it's great to co-host with you for this third season of Live from Wespath. We have over 1,800 people registered representing every annual conference, and we want to thank you for tuning in to join us live. Our goal for this broadcast is to share Wespath's insights about the topics that mean the most to you, our United Methodist community. If our faces look familiar, then there's a good chance you've heard us present in person at annual conference or a Wespath event, or perhaps you've met us virtually on a benefits education webinar or a clergy well-being segment. The best way for you to stay up to date on your benefit plans and services is to follow us on social media, which highlights the latest and greatest resources that Wespath has to offer. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Today's program will be in 3 segments. The first will focus on the United Methodist Church and its clergy. The second will provide an investment and financial markets update. And the third segment will cover all things health and well-being.
Thanks, Rachel. Certainly a lot of great content for our viewers. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. The platform that we're using today is interactive. It's Zoom webinar, and that enables you to ask questions throughout the live broadcast. We have subject matter experts working behind the scenes that will answer your questions. Many of you, actually hundreds of you, submitted questions during the registration process. To submit questions, please use the Q&A, question and answer icon on the platform. In addition, if you have any technical, audio, visual issues, please use the Q&A. We can give you help. There's also in your chat box a Zoom webinar guide which can help you. Live from Wespath is being recorded. The 3 segments, you'll be provided with the recording link, as well as some additional resources and a follow-up survey, just so that we can gauge your interest in future Wespath-sponsored events. But right now, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Andy Hendren, Wespath's CEO and General Secretary, and it's always great to have Andy here to kick off our Live from Wespath broadcast. Hello, Andy.
Greetings from our Live from Wespath event. I'm Andy Hendren, Wespath's General Secretary. Thank you for your faithful ministry. We know so many of you spend most of your time thinking about others and caring for other people's needs. So we're grateful that you've set aside time today to focus on your future. The new Compass retirement plan might be raising questions for UMC clergy. With this new plan launching at the beginning of next year, we've put some sessions about Compass very first on our Live from Wespath agenda. Wespath is working hard to make sure you're well informed and ready for this new and different retirement plan. But please stay tuned throughout the afternoon too. There's much more to hear and learn at Live from Wespath. From how to get the most out of your retirement accounts through investing wisely, to some best practices that help align your church's investment decisions with its mission and ministry, and that build financial resilience, all the way to practical ideas that can help you feel your best in mind, body, and soul. We've got a lot packed into our time together. It's been a year now since last spring's pivotal general conference, and as I've talked with people throughout our denomination this past year, I'm hearing some recurring themes. There's a greater sense of shared purpose and identity, a renewed energy, and a commitment to be the UMC in fresh and better ways. We truly are doing a new thing as United Methodists. Thank you for giving us your time today and for all that you do as you walk a life of faith-filled service. Grace and peace be with you.
Thank you, Andy, for your opening remarks and for your sound and insightful leadership as you continue to lead Wespath forward into the future. Our first segment, Church and Clergy, provides an overview of Compass, insights from the next generation of church leaders, and Wespath's partnerships in working to strengthen the UMC.
As you may know, Compass is coming. You might have heard about this. It's launching on January 1st, 2026. What is Compass? Well, Compass is the new mandatory plan for eligible clergy. So we're going to turn it over to some experts that have been helping build and prepare us for Compass. We have Martin Bauer and Kim Olson, and they're going to give us really a comprehensive overview of what is this new retirement plan, as well as point out some of the key important plan design features that'll help our clergy. So welcome, Martin and Kim, to Live from Wespath. We thank you for being here, and we thank you for all your efforts in putting Compass together. What can you tell us about Compass?
Thanks, Bob. Hi, everyone. I'd like to get started talking about Compass, and I know Martin was here originally before I joined, and he was heavily involved in the design phase of the project. Martin, can you tell us what was important to the board of directors as well as other committees tasked with creating the new plan?
Well, thank you, Kim, and yes, welcome to all of our audience. Correct, I had the pleasure of working with our board of directors and the relevant board committees all the way back in 2018 when we came up with plan design. It was meant to be a plan that was scheduled to go live after General Conference 2020. Well, we all know what happened in the interim, of course. It is important to point out that pretty much from the beginning there were certain guiding principles that guided the work in developing this new retirement plan for clergy. And you can see here on the screen really the four key principles. It's important to recognize that we wanted to make sure that this new plan supports both the needs of the church as well as the individual needs of participants. And so the first two of these principles that you can see are really there to support the church. The first one, sustainability, simply refers to the fact that this plan was meant to be able to stand the test of time and be able to be supported by the church through the changes and the uncertainties that we all know the church is in the middle of. Closely related is affordability. We all know that cash and financial means are not free-flowing in the church, and so this needed to be a plan that was affordable to the church as the plan sponsor. And yet at the same time, there were also principles that are there to support you as plan participant, as clergy. And the first one, of course, is adequacy. The plan definitely needs to be able to provide you with an adequate retirement income, and we believe that it does absolutely that. And the second one about flexibility reflects the fact that the traditional model of lifelong clergy in full-time appointment is increasingly a rarity, is definitely changing, and so the plan needed to provide some flexibility to really to adjust to the different needs of different circumstances. And so let me go back to you, Kim, to describe the benefit formula, the core of the plan, but maybe before you do that, you can talk about what doesn't change.
Yes, that is key to this whole discussion. We have heard this from a number of you, and let me just reassure you, those who are currently retired, nothing is changing. You will continue to receive your pensions and your defined contribution accounts just like you are today. For those of you who are retiring this year, again, nothing is changing. You will receive exactly what you have earned, and will continue to have those benefits available to you. For those of you who are going into 2026 as clergy, you will continue to keep everything that you have earned through January 1, 2026. Again, all of that is protected and will not be lost going forward. Now, what does change is how the contributions are going to be provided on a future basis. So prospective only, starting in January 2026, the plan will be a fully defined contribution plan, which is similar to UMPIP and CRISP DC. It will no longer have a pension component, which is like CRSP DB or MPP. The contributions will come into the plan in three different methods. The first one is $150 per month. This will be determined based on each month of service. For those clergy who are appointed at less than full time, that amount will be prorated down to the appointment percentage. So as an example, if you are 50% appointed, then your $150 would be prorated down to $75, which is 50% of $150. This amount also does escalate. It will stay, it's the same for everyone in each calendar year. So in 2026, the amount is $150. We do have a summary of how the amount will escalate over time, and I would encourage you to go to wespath.org and visit that summary page. The 3% of plan compensation, that is an automatic contribution, a non-matching contribution. And I think first of all, we need to talk about what is plan compensation. Plan compensation is the cash compensation that is earned plus either 35% parsonage value or a housing allowance. The parsonage value is increasing from 25% in CRSP to 35%. And lastly, we have the matching contribution. That's where we call into the partnership idea of contributions. If you contribute 4%, the UMC will match that 4% of plan compensation. If you contribute 1%, the UMC will provide a 1% matching contribution. And just to round it out, if you contribute 10%, the UMC will contribute 4%. So you can see how important it is that we can help you as clergy get up to that 4% level, which is something that my team is very focused on and trying to provide all of the materials that can help you do that. Our first point of reference that we always encourage people to do is to go to EY and have them talk you through a budget, a spending plan, let them help you figure out how you can make this achievable. And we do know that right now the average contribution rate for clergy is 5.99%. That has gone up since last year. And so we have seen some very positive signs that people are increasing their contribution rate. We know of about 25% who we really need to reach out to and try to help them find ways to make sure that they are not missing out on this match. Martin, could you describe how each one of these components looks in a real life example?
You mean I should give an actual example? Because if you participants are like me, it actually helps to see what this looks like on a piece of paper. Well, I'm glad to do so. And
it's good that I brought the paper then.
There you go. And before I do that, just piggybacking on what you just said as far as participants already being well prepared for this plan. As you said, the average contribution is now close to 6%. Let me add to that, more than half the participants make more than 4% in contributions. 9 out of 10 clergy persons at least make some contribution. So making contributions is something that all of you are definitely used to, and that's fantastic. So again, I think overall well prepared for this new plan. Now, this example assumes a clergy person who lives in a parsonage with a cash compensation of $51,852. Strange amount, I know. It was chosen by us so that when you include the 35% imputed income, the value of the parsonage, it gets to exactly $70,000. That's a round number that we can all calculate with in our head. And so let's further assume the clergy, the pastor's contribution is 4% of that plan contribution, 4% of $70,000. That's $2,800. That is money that comes out of the pastor's paycheck into Compass. All contributions go into Compass in this plan, both participant contributions and plan sponsor contributions. And so the church contributions is $150 per month. So for the full year, that's 12 times $150. That's $1,800, which in this example works out to be about 2.6% of plan compensation. In addition, the 3% non-matching contribution, you don't need to do anything. Everybody gets that. That's 3% of $70,000 or $2,100. And then lastly, the matching contribution, because the pastor is assumed to have made a $2,800 contribution, the church makes a $2,800 contribution as well. And when you add it up, it's $9,500. That's a significant amount. It amounts to 13.6% of compensation, 9.6% of which is made by the clergy, by the church. But it also emphasizes what you, Kim, already said. If a person does not make any contributions, then not only is that 4% at the top of the page falling off, but also the match is falling off. In other words, the 13.6% is reduced by 8 and is down to 5.6%, which really isn't enough. And so with that in mind of the importance of making sure participants really get to that 4%, maybe you can talk a little bit about how the transition works and what gets carried over and how that...
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So in that example that Martin just gave, the 4% contribution that the clergy is making, they would start off on the far right side of this chart, but I'm going to start off on the left side to just talk directly to those who are not contributing yet. So all of the elections that you currently have, so if you're not contributing right now to CRSP DC, then your contributions will be automatically set at 4% on a before-tax basis going forward into Compass on January 1, 2026. If you are making contributions that are less than 4%, and you could be making them on a Roth basis, you could be making them on a before-tax, on an after-tax basis, what the automatic contribution or the automatic enrollment will increase that contribution rate to 4%. So if you're making a 2% Roth contribution, it will be increased to 4% starting January 1, 2026. And similarly, if you're making a 1% before-tax contribution, that would be increased to 4%. Now, it's important to think about this. We've heard lots of different viewpoints on automatic. We are not in the driver's seat of your retirement. You are in the driver's seat for your retirement. So you can always go and change that to whatever rate you want. You could change it to 8. You could change it to 2. But we really want to just emphasize the idea of earning that full matching contribution because that does total up to 8%. For any clergy who are already contributing at least 4%, their contributions will continue on at whatever rate they are right now, and all of those funds will go directly into Compass. It does not matter, in order to get the match, which type of contribution you have. If it's before tax, after tax, or Roth. As long as that total is 4%, you will receive a 4% matching contribution. Does that make sense, Martin?
It does make sense, and so yes, you really don't have to do anything. This will be set automatically. There will not be a re-enrollment type event. You will transition smoothly into that new era of Compass. Let me just point out one more thing, and that's the magic of compounding, the magic of compound interest. I think it was Albert Einstein who described it as the eighth wonder of the world.
Yes.
I think he also is attributed to him that when asked what is the strongest force in the universe, he said compound interest. I don't know if he actually said that, but the image is certainly powerful and is accurate. What it basically means is this plan lives not only of the contributions that go into the plan, but then also the earnings and the earnings on the earnings, which is what compound interest really means over the years. I have been in a defined contribution plan for decades now, and my experience is that the account balance doubles every 7 to 10 years, right? There's no guarantee for that, but that's not an unusual expectation to have. And so in that sense, money that has longer time to grow is the most meaningful for your retirement security. And so it really is key. And so another way of describing that is that nice quote that is on the page here of the best time to plant an oak tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And so in that sense, that really means let's start saving today. Rounding us out, maybe spend a minute on a few more features that are designed to help clergy.
Sure. So we talked about the parsonage value increasing from 25 to 35%. The student loan provision, a lot of you have talked about that. There is a video, and I believe you'll be seeing that during one of the intermissions today, that will help you understand the student loan provision. It is not in place of anything. It is only if you are able to or not able to contribute to the plan because your student loan debt is preventing that from happening. That's an unfair situation for you to be put in. And so if you provide information that you have satisfied a 4% of plan compensation or 1% of plan compensation, you will be rewarded with a match in Compass. There is no matching contribution or any other type of contributions going towards your student loans or towards the plan. We would really suggest that if you can figure out a way to do both, that's great. And again, that's where EY comes in to help you and to find new and different ways to explore how you can spend your hard-earned dollars. Please watch out for the video. It is also important for clergy who are later in their careers to consider this, as you may have student loan debt for your children, your spouse, grandchildren, and as long as your name is on the loan, then you are eligible. Lastly, I just want to cover automatic escalation. That is something you'll be finding out more about later in 2026, but it does include some level of escalating your contribution into the plan every time that you're basically receiving a pay increase. Life stage investment management, over 80% of you are already in life stage investment management. That will be increased slightly from to allow for a few different options. And then life stage retirement income, which is award-winning for Wespath, and we're pleased that so many retirees are using the technology that we've created to help you turn that pot of money that you have at retirement into income. That has been one of the biggest issues with defined contribution plans in the past, and we've figured out how to do it. The rest of the industry is trying to catch up to us.
That sounds good. Well, thank you. That's helpful. let's now go to the audience. Let's pick up on some of the questions that you sent in.
All right, thank you very much, Martin and Kim. And this topic has certainly blown up the switchboard. We have lots of questions that have come in. I'm going to try to combine two of those, Martin. And I see this in the field. Benefit educators see this in the field. Retired clergy, we meet a lot of them. They're concerned. Can you promise me my benefits won't change? And the second part of that is multiple questions, many about contributions. Will they, participant contributions, will they go into UMPIP or into Compass after January 1?
All right, let me take that one. You already said it earlier, right? So for those of you who are already retired, nothing changes. For those of you who haven't retired yet, nothing is taken away of the benefit that you have earned to date. So all of that remains in place without a change. So that one, just to re-emphasize and reassure you, and yes, all contributions will go into Compass. That's a change from the situation in the past where participant contributions and church contributions went into two different plans. With Compass, we'll make it easier, one bag of money.
How do I know if I'm eligible for Compass, and what if I'm serving more than one church?
Wow, I'll take that one, Martin, because you've got the softball. So you will know if you're eligible for the plan as an active clergy. Annual conferences will decide eligibility for those who are not at 100%. So please reach out to your CBO or wait until the annual conference when they determine that. Those who are serving multiple churches, so let's just say that you are serving 25% at one church and 75% at another, that makes you 100%. And you would have an opportunity to select different contribution rates for yourself from those two different churches, but the overall contribution, like that $150 that I mentioned, that would still be $150. I hope that helps, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right, next up, tell us more about this mandatory payout phase for the church contributions through the Life Stage Retirement Income Program. How did that come about?
Yeah, so let me take that one. So Life Stage Retirement Income, as Kim said, is an award-winning program that really industry experts, meaning external consultants and Wespath, developed together to maximize and optimize the payout feature. It was very important to the board of directors to ensure that this program, that Compass, is a retirement income plan first, and as such, that the program should provide for income that is intended to last for a lifetime. Life Stage Retirement Income does that to the best of anybody's abilities. It is important to recognize it's mandatory on the church contribution piece. As far as your own contributions, you are certainly encouraged to use Life Stage Retirement Income, but you don't have to. You can use other mechanisms as well. Bob, Rachel?
If my previous contribution was below 4% and I can't afford to move up to that 4%, how do I best approach the change with Compass?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, that's tricky. I can appreciate that because I can go back to my young self and say that was really hard to come up with 4%. And I worked with a number of different people, including my mentors. They were able to help me figure out a way that I could manage the 4%. One of the things to think about is that 4% is not really 4% when you contribute on a before-tax basis, because taxes are less than they would be if you were not contributing at all. And I don't think that really answers your question, but I really would suggest that you talk to some financial planners like EY, talk to others within the clergy. I know there are some bishops who are quite supportive of this and trying to help clergy reach that 4% level.
All right, next up, the presenters keep saying the church contributes. Who exactly is the church? Is it the local church, the annual conference, the general church? Can you explain that, please?
Sure. So at the end of the day, it is the local church that makes the contributions. It sends those contributions to the annual conference, and the annual conference collects the money and then passes it on to us at Wespath, and we then deposit that amount into everybody's individual account. So all parts of the church have a little piece of it.
Thank you. Can a clergy person's spouse or children contribute to Compass? If so, is there an age threshold?
Wow, that's a tricky one. The spouse and children could contribute if they are also clergy who are mandatorily or elected eligible for the plan. They cannot contribute, though, to the clergy's Compass account. Couple things to think about with that is that if the clergy determines that they're not able to make 4%, maybe they can talk with their family and figure out a way to get them up to 4% with other people's compensation taken into account. The other avenue, sorry, Rachel, what was the second question?
If so, is there an age threshold?
Oh, so there is not an age threshold, and clergy have a mandatory retirement date for the Book of Discipline, I believe, and so that would really be the mandatory date.
All right, great. We just have one more for you. How does the Compass plan compare in terms of dollars and or percentage for clergy compared to the current plan, Clergy Retirement Security Program, CRSP?
Well, that's a really good question. So first, there are structural differences, right? CRSP didn't have a contribution that went into an individual account except for the CRSP DC portion, whereas Compass really does. And whatever contributions go into your account, they are for you to keep for forever. That said, from a value perspective, and in fact, that which we ask the annual conferences to contribute, under CRSP, the combined total of the church contribution between CRSP DB and CRSP DC was about 10% of planned compensation. As you saw in the example that I gave earlier, under Compass, it will be about 9.6%. So a slight reduction in that number, but broadly comparable. And I would want to add to that, it used to be about 10% of the old definition of pay, of compensation that included 25% for parsonage. Now it's going to be 9.6% of a larger number, at least for those in the parsonage. So again, the two plans really are broadly comparable in terms of value delivered to you as the participant.
Well, all right. Well, I really want to thank Martin and Kim for joining us today for the Live from Wespath. Right now, just sit back. We're going to show you a brief video that just talks a little bit more about these Compass contributions.
With Compass, you have the power to chart your course for retirement. The more you contribute, the more you invest in your long-term goals. Consistent contributions over time can significantly impact your account. Compass includes contributions from the UMC, a monthly flat dollar amount of $150 plus 3% of your compensation. In addition, the UMC matches your contributions up to 4% of your compensation. This means when you contribute 4% to Compass, an extra 4% goes to your retirement savings. A great deal. These contributions, plus investment earnings, help build your retirement savings. We encourage you to work with EY Financial Planners, a service provided at no cost to you as part of your participation in Compass. EY understands all Wespath administered retirement plans, as well as the unique financial and tax circumstances of UMC clergy. Your decisions today will determine your retirement tomorrow. Chart your future with Compass. Compass, coming January 1, 2026.
Up next, we have a panel discussion about what UMC clergy need to do in order to prepare for the launch of Compass and the resources that Wespath provides. Joining us is moderator Frank O'Brien and panelists Lynn Hamill, Tony Prestipino, and Christina Tincher. Hello, everyone, and what information can you share with us today?
Thank you, Rachel. Good morning or good afternoon, as the case may be, and welcome to the Compass Roadmap segment of today's program. During the course of the next 15 minutes or so, we will highlight some of the planned features that you just heard from Martin and Kim, talk about some key decision points that will be for your consideration or the annual conference's consideration, and then give you some context about what you need to know and what you should be doing now as you prepare for your participation in Compass next year. We will begin with Tony Prestipino. Tony, good to see you this morning.
Frank, thank you.
Tony will discuss some of the key decision points that your annual conference will make and speak to how we are supporting the annual conferences, annual conference staff, and all of you in your respective annual conferences. Tony?
Great, Frank. Thank you so much for having me, and it's wonderful to be here virtually. I wish I could see many of your faces, but we'll talk about that in a minute, how we're going to be connecting with many of our participants and clergy across the denomination here shortly. But once again, just want to thank you so much for taking the time to come here and learn about this. We have a department here at Wespath called Plan Sponsor Relations that I lead, along as well with Lynn, who you'll hear about in a minute, as one of the team members on that team. And our core function is really to support the annual conferences. In particular, your conference benefit officer, your treasurer, some conferences have human resource offices, and also your conference board of pensions. And much like what you're doing here today is just learning about the basics of the plan, and that's really where we have to start in each of the annual conferences. So where do we start? We start pretty much where we kind of talked about in the last segment. What are those core tenets of this Compass plan? And where we look at typically with them is to begin with a $150 flat dollar amount. And the one thing that we like to talk about with our Board of Pensions on that is when they're going in to decide on who to cover, what the impact to that $150 amount will be to the participants in the plan. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We also just have to go back through and talk about the definition of compensation, how housing factors into that, and also trying to begin working with them on looking at the data around the contribution matches in their annual conference. Some conferences collect all that information and have visibility into it, and others really rely on Wespath to work with the participants on that in there. So we're working with them so they can understand and help participants get to that 4% contribution if they're able. Now, if we go look at the other slide in this deck, you'll see a couple other components of the program. So one, we talked a little bit around plan eligibility. This means who's covered in the plan. And as we heard earlier, you will hear in other settings, Compass mandatorily or automatically covers those clergy whose appointment totals 100%, whether that's in one church or in a combination of multiple churches. But an annual conference gets to choose if they want to cover clergy at 3/4 time or half time. And so they can change that decision, they can add coverage or change it a little bit every year. And if for some reason you're in a category that's in one of these less than full-time, don't despair if the conference doesn't cover you in Compass, because there are other options via our traditional UMPIP plan that can still provide a benefit plan, or the annual conferences may move you there, or that can be sponsored with the local church. The other thing we spend time talking with annual conferences on is this notion of the automatic features. So the first part is the automatic enrollment. The plan calls for people to be enrolled at 4%, but an annual conference can choose to increase that percentage if they would like to. And so we talk through the pros and cons of that with each annual conference. Also, when we get to 2027, another feature that will kick in is called automatic escalation. So annual conferences will choose a value that they would like to see participants escalated to over the course of their career. And so, for example, we may see an annual conference choose to enroll a participant at 4%, that's the minimum value that they can, and then over time try to get that participant to 10%. And so what will happen is every year under something like that is a participant's contribution would increase by 1%. But right, this is what the plan calls for in automatic situations, but you as the participant can always make an alternative decision on what amounts you want withheld, whether that be lower or higher than what the automatic enrollment or escalation percentage calls for. So you're in full control there. The other thing that we're spending time with annual conferences on is really this education component. After we work through the decisions, then it's really thinking about what are the opportunities to help educate participants and Board of Pension members think through how this plan can roll out and what participants in their conference need to know. The other thing that we spend quite a bit of time on, and we've talked about how the money goes into the account here at Wespath, but annual conferences choose how the local church or other sponsors of Compass will be basically allocated or build components of that plan. So some conferences may just choose a combination percentage that they'll spread to the churches that will kind of come in. And we're working through various methodologies that will be out there that will probably be pretty clear to you at your annual conference setting as you go in addition to some of the features that are out there in terms of who's covered. The last thing that I just want to mention before I turn it back to you, Frank, to talk to some of our other peers, is we are going to make an effort to be in every annual conference this year. So you'll see me, you'll see many of the people that are panelists on this Live from Wespath. The moderators will be out. So it will be another place for you to just connect with us and ask additional questions. But Frank, I'm going to turn it back to you to continue on.
Thank you very much, Tony, for that valuable information. And I think I can speak for the benefit educators. We are very excited to provide the support to you at your annual conferences, the ones that we will be participating in. I think from this, you're starting to get a sense of a great deal of activity that is occurring here at Wespath. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Christina Tincher. Christina, please review with us the ways in which the Communications Department at Wespath is supporting our participants and our annual conferences on our road to Compass.
Yeah,
Christina?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Frank. I'm Christina Tincher. I oversee our communication efforts here at Wespath. In fact, many of my communication colleagues are here behind the scenes producing this event. But we have been really hard at work. We have a participant communication timeline so that come January 1st, 2026, you all have the information that you need and feel secure and prepared for the new plan. So I'm going to run through a couple of key communication items, tools, and resources that we've been building to help better inform you. The first one I want to point out, very straightforward, our Compass webpage. And this is the home base for all things Compass. So please bookmark it, pin it to your browser, and revisit it time and time again, because as materials get updated, they are updated on the webpage. It's the hub and home base that you can continue to visit. In addition, we have our Fast Facts Compass video series. You saw one of the videos directly before this segment that shared more information, more details about how the Compass contributions are being taken or put into play. And then later on, you will also see another one about the student loan provision. And these videos are intended to help clarify some of the Compass features that can seem more complex. So as you see on the roadmap, those will continue to roll out over the course of the year. They will be on the website. You'll see them on social. So hopefully you will see them in course of just interacting and engaging with Wespath. But again, check back on the Compass webpage. We have our Compass at a Glance. It's a 2-page summary of Compass that's available also on the webpage. It's not only in English, it's also in Spanish and Korean. And as noted on this page, we will be translating some of our key materials into Spanish and Korean. We also launched a Compass quarterly email. The first one went out in February. The next one will come out in May, this next month. And it's a great place to find any upcoming events like Live from Wespath. There will be webinars later in the year. We have check your knowledge, so you can kind of see where you are with your knowledge of Compass. And then, of course, pointing to the latest and greatest resources. The participant FAQ, the frequently asked questions, also available on the website. And that is something that continues to be updated as we hear from more and more participants. So I expect that after this event, we'll update it with some of the great questions that we've had come in. As Tony said, we will be at each annual conference. We'll have a presence. We may be presenting. We may have a resource table, but that is an excellent opportunity for you to connect with the Wespath staff. We are here for you as a resource to answer your questions, point you to the correct materials, and so forth. So you'll see in the calendar that the communications rollout continues this year and into 2026, just because the plan launches. We'll still be communicating about it, don't you worry. And yeah, I think if you move to the next slide, if I just gave you a lot of materials, if you want maybe a couple to take away, if I haven't mentioned already, Compass webpage. And please check out that quarterly Compass email. You should have it in your inbox if you didn't see it when it first came in. Social media, such an easy way to get the latest and greatest from us. So please follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. We did do a Compass Did You Know campaign recently, and again, that'll continue to ramp up over the course of the year. And then finally, the Fast Facts videos. So yeah, I hope you get out there and enjoy those materials.
Well, thank you very much, Christina. I think we can all see and appreciate that there is a great effort going on right now in support of Compass within the context of our annual conferences and with our participants. So now we'd like to turn it over to Lynn Hamill. Lynn, with all the information that we're hearing, the plan design features, the key decision points, the communications that are ongoing, could you please crystallize for us what our participants should be thinking about in the here and the now as they prepare themselves for Compass come 2026?
Absolutely. And thank you, Frank. Lynn Hamill, I am a client relationship manager on Tony's team. And as he mentioned, my teammates and I, along with other Wespath colleagues, will be attending the 2025 annual conferences. So we look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks. We've learned quite a bit this morning about Compass and how that's going to be rolled out. And what we want you to remember is that we are now about 8 months. May 1st is tomorrow, and in January of 26, it will be rolled out. What I'd like to do is to give you some things that you can do now to prepare yourself for Compass. First, go to Benefits Access. If you have never set up a user ID and password, now is the time. Once you've done that, take a look at your personal contributions. As we've heard from Martin and Kim, we are seeing many people are over 4%, and if that's you, that's great. That's already a step in the right direction. If you are not at 4%, take the time now, maybe increase 1 or 2% over the coming months, and get used to that higher contribution so that come January, you're prepared to receive that 4% match. Also, while you're in Benefits Access, take a look at your beneficiaries. Have you had a life event that necessitates an update of your beneficiary or a change in the beneficiary? You can do that in Benefits Access. Also be aware that we have a projection tool that you're able to use to help understand Compass a little bit more. Familiarize yourself with it. And then, then you can also take advantage of the one-on-one counseling sessions that we have available with the retirement benefit educators, as well as EY that is able to assist you. And in fact, I'll let Frank tell us more about EY and and what the benefit educators can do.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I think this is very important information that you have just shared with us. I think you have laid out for the participants who will be participating in Clergy some next steps that they can be thinking about now to get themselves prepared. And I would just like to remind you that these sessions are being recorded, so that if you want to come back to this discussion, you can do that at your own leisure. What I like to say is that we have a plethora of resources here at Wespath, from our staff, our website, the benefit access portal, the online tools that were just mentioned, and our communication, etc. We have the information available to you to really get an understanding of your current plan, your current plan account, and how you can continue to build that going forward. But certainly, my favorite resource to discuss and review with all of you is the one-on-one benefit education consultations. We benefit educators love to do these consultations with our clergy and lay employees to really help them hone in on their personal situation, their account, and help them think through some things they can do to basically optimize their participation in the plan. On the screen, you can see a link, and that link is now being provided to you in the chat box. You click on that link, and you schedule, according to your schedule, a 1/2-hour consultation with one of the benefit educators, and we will be assigned that request. And then we will send out to you an invite. It is an MS Teams invite, and then we can have a video conference to review your situation with you. In preparation for that consultation, we will look at your benefit access record. We'll run a clergy retirement, a clergy service record or employment service record, a retirement benefit projection, see how and how much you are contributing into the plan, how you are invested, life stage investment management or self-managing, and just go through all of that with you. But it's not a one and done event. If we do not have the opportunity to get through all of that information with you, we will go ahead and schedule another consultation as a follow-up. And it is not uncommon for us, certainly in retirement season, to do multiple consultations to really help individuals think through their plans, their benefits, and their benefit options. Certainly, if you are married, your spouse is welcome to attend. But if you want your financial advisor, your tax preparer to attend the consultation, they are more than invited as long as you are there at that time. And what we have found out over time is that our participants will have a consultation with us as they prepare to have their initial conversation with EY Financial Planning Services, our partner to provide comprehensive household financial planning services to you at no additional out-of-pocket cost to you. There is no limit on how often you can use EY, number of phone calls per year or number of hours per year. You can use them as often as you like. And they are there to help you with your household financial questions, be them large or small. In the context of retirement planning, we talk about financial planning, retirement income planning, tax efficiency planning as it relates to the housing allowance for clergy. But they'll answer any question that you have that's financially related. How do I open a 529 savings plan for my child or my grandchild? Should I rent or should I lease a car? They can help you with any question that you have, large or small. We cannot encourage you enough to take advantage of the services that they provide. Collectively, these and other resources that we are talking about today are certainly available to you to engage with to help prepare you on your road to Compass. We hope you have found this segment both informative and actionable. I'd like to take the time to thank our panelists for joining us this morning, but before we let them go, we're going to go back up to our host to see if any questions have come through for our attention.
Thank you, Frank. Really, a lot of great information, and I appreciate you putting in a plug for the benefit education consultations. You know, it's amazing to me that that program now has been in place for 5 years, and we've done literally thousands of these one-on-one consultations. So thank you for that. Christina, maybe this one is directed to you, and maybe it's a carryover from our first segment, but is Wespath also communicating to retirees and surviving spouses on the new Compass plan and it not having any impact on them or their continuation of income going forward? So what's happening with that, Christina?
Yeah, that's a really good question because we have had a lot of people reach out. Yes, we have been communicating that message. That said, we do communicate, as you saw, in a lot of different places. So We will continue to communicate that message. It is basically our number one message, just to make sure that those who are not being affected understand that.
Great. Thank you so much, Christine. This question's for you, Tony. Will my annual conference provide educational opportunities to understand the changes in the retirement due to the shift to Compass?
Great question, and thank you, Rachel, for asking that. So yes, in many of the annual conferences, there will be some sort of session that's devoted to this. It may be around the time of the clergy session. It may be a separate workshop in some part of the schedule of the annual conference. But what we're also talking with some annual conferences that aren't able to accommodate that into their agenda is to really think through times, either, we've seen some already actually take place this spring, but if not, what are the opportunities in the fall to make sure that people have an opportunity to get in there? And in pretty much any of those situations, we're having a conversation with the conference about how to get Wespath staff in there to help them as well.
Thanks, Tony. And I actually look forward to attending some of the annual conference sessions this season. Next one up. Christina, you had mentioned all these resources on our webpage, and you mentioned a frequently asked question. I think this is coming from a conference person. Is this something that we can email or share with churches and clergy?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Absolutely. We encourage you to please share all of the resources we have available to whatever extent you want to. So absolutely, with the frequently asked questions, the videos, any of our content is there for you to consume and share.
Thank you. What are the key decisions that I need to make now to make sure I'm optimizing my retirement savings?
Lynn, you want to answer that?
Oh, sure. I think number one, you want to make sure you set up your benefits access. Number two, you want to make sure that your contribution is at 4%. And as I said earlier, if it is not at 4%, use these coming months to prepare yourself for that. Also, use the projection tool, and then use the website that we've talked about quite a bit today, and save that as your favorite to keep yourself up to date on what's going on with Compass. And then I think you are well situated for January 1st, 2026.
And if I may, speaking about the benefit education consultations again, if you're not quite sure how you're positioned and you have questions around how you can best prepare, please take advantage of the one-on-one consultations, and we can walk that through with you. Thanks.
All right, panel, just one more question we have time for. And we have a couple people that asked us, I think they're really excited about Compass and want to take full advantage of the participant contributions. They just are asking, are the contribution maximums that the IRS sets each year, is that applicable to Compass as well as it was to the 403B, the UMPIP plan?
Right?
I'll let you handle that. You get that one a lot, so.
Deferring to Tony. The contribution limits are provided each year by the Department of Labor through law and regulation. Those maximum contribution amounts, although they're indexed every year, will not change relative to being in the Compass plan. Both your personal investment plan contribution you want to make and the combined employer contribution, there's a maximum limit on that as well. So really, it's business as usual as it relates to the annual maximum amount that you can contribute each year.
Thank you, Frank. Tony, one more quick question for you before we close. What about a 2-point charge? How will the contribution be handled from multiple churches?
Yeah, so what really matters to us is what your complete appointment percentage is. And we see conferences kind of share that information with us in various ways. But the key really is to make sure that whatever combination of appointment percentages that you've kind of agreed to with your DS, if it's at 100%, then you should be considered full-time. If you're in one of those categories that's less than full-time, then work with your conference on thinking about is it Compass that's available to you, or is there another option that's out there working for you? But either way, we can find some sort of retirement, vehicle that works for just about anybody. But Rachel, thank you so much for that.
Thank you to all of you, and thank you to our viewers for your participation and interest. The questions continue to come in, are being answered. If there are any questions we don't get to, we will follow up with you after this broadcast.
And please be sure to visit our Compass Resource webpage to find out more information. There's so much stuff there. And just in from the control desk, we've put the link in the chat box so you can get directly to that resource page.
In our next segment, we want to welcome a special group of individuals. These folks serve on an advisory board that meets regularly to provide feedback on Wespath's programs and initiatives. They will share reflections on their lives as servant leaders, including what keeps them grounded during this time of transition with the church, and how they think about the future. Please welcome our moderator, Reverend Dorlamar LeBron, and panelists, Reverend John Fleischauer, Sarah Getz, and Reverend Seth O'Kegley. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Bob, and this has been such a rich conversation so far. I'm really looking to having all of us be able to hear a little bit more from our Young Leaders Advisory Board. Before we dig in, I kind of want us to ground ourselves a little bit. We've been talking a lot about plans and all that's coming and all that's new, but I kind of want to bring us back to kind of like, what are those experiences? What was that moment? What are those things that we've lived that has really defined and shaped our leadership, shaped our ministries? I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dorlamar, and it's so good to be part of Live from Wespath today. One of the things that I've realized has really shaped my leadership is the fact that I've had an opportunity to see the church from lots of different levels. I currently serve on conference staff in North Alabama, as well as serving a local church, but throughout my ministry, I've been in various lay staff roles with the conference, as well as local churches, as well as a campus ministry setting. So it's been so rich for me to have that opportunity of seeing how our connectional system is really at its best when we're all working together in different settings and different environments to be part of that shared mission that we have.
So I never felt a call to ordained ministry. It took me a while, and I realized that my call was to administration. So my undergrad includes religious studies background, MBA with leadership, systems dynamic, property, finance, and what do you do with all of that? You work for the United Methodist Church at the conference office. So in 2021, I really felt that it was the time to shift from my previous work to start working with the conference and bring all those pieces together.
Yeah.
Well, I seem to have been raised for ministry. I come from a family of pastors and secretaries and organists and choir directors. And I've worked in the local churches since I was 19. So I thought I had it all figured out. This is what I'm supposed to do. And nothing is as humbling as a large sanctuary fire in your first year of your first appointment. But, you know, through those challenges, I really feel like I have a stronger hold on what it means to really be a pastoral leader, both in the administrative sense, but then also in how to shepherd and be there in times of crisis. And I think overall that's really taught me a lot about how to be a pastor in times of non-crisis as well.
Yeah, no, and I think that those are really good points, these ideas of the multiple types of experiences, that all the different gift sets that we need, and being prepared for the unexpected, right? I mean, things that they don't teach you at seminary, essentially. And so we know that the church is evolving. We know that it's changing congregations. The way we do church is evolving. Some congregations are struggling. Some are growing and thriving. Based on what you've seen, what you've experienced thus far, what do you feel are the biggest challenges? But also because I know we are people with hope and we are visionaries ourselves, where do we see the opportunities right now in this moment in the life of the church?
Well, I think our biggest challenge right now is staying connected. Not relevant. I think God, I think Scripture, I think the church continues to stay relevant. But I think the ways that we connect have to change as the world changes around us. And so what I'm finding right now is that our greatest opportunity for connection seems to be in service. Ways that we can continue to serve our neighborhood, serve the world. Our churches can become communities where people can really experience belonging and connection so that they might have that same, kind of assurance that strangely warmed hearts a few hundred years ago.
Yeah, that's good.
So one of the things that I've realized more and more, especially over the last few years, is that the church 20 years from now is going to look very different from the church today, and obviously the church today looks very different than it did 20 years ago. And so as I think about the challenges and the opportunities that we have as churches and as clergy, I think my answer to both is that the church is at a time of transition. We're at a time of reimagining what it looks like to be a United Methodist connection, to be United Methodist congregations. In fact, even just as part of our meeting this week, we've heard some really cool stories about ways that people are reimagining what it means to be church and to do that in different ways that can reach more people, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and oftentimes in these conversations, we do hear like stories, like really powerful stories of youth and engaging things. But something we don't talk about as often, or maybe not enough, is money, right? And the reality that money is needed for ministry, but also money is a part of how we care for ourselves, right? We know that a lot of new leaders in the church, could be trying to keep their ministries alive with limited resources. They're struggling with debt. And so we would love to hear a little bit about your own personal journey with finances, with understanding finances also being part of our well-being and something that we need to care about. When was that like aha moment? Like, oh, I think I need to think about this a little more and care about this a little more. Like, we would love to hear some of that.
Yeah, so one of the things that is going to be no surprise to anyone who's watching this is that clergy taxes and financial matters can be a little bit confusing. We've talked about some of those kind of weird clergy financial situations that you talk about and people go, why do you have to deal with that as clergy? So, I think one of my kind of aha moments was early on in ministry, just some of those basic things like not realizing that I was supposed to be making quarterly tax payments and, some of those unique situations. So one of the things that I really appreciate about what Wespath does and what a lot of our annual conferences do is looking for those opportunities to really connect with clergy, particularly early in their careers, and talk about what are those things that you need to be thinking about, whether that's retirement, whether that's taxes, whatever that situation may be. I think that's one of the things that we can continually improve on is looking at those opportunities to do that education early on.
Yeah, and oftentimes we talk about how we do have already an existing infrastructure that supports young people coming into ministry or that supports new people coming into ministry. And I just feel like how can we be more creative? Every annual conference has their own flavor, has their own way of doing things. So what is that structure and system that we have that we can kind of begin to plug in these conversations about financial well-being? Does anybody want to share a little bit more about their story?
I would say for me, financial wellness was started at the beginning. My father passed away when I was very young, so it was just me and my mom for the first 9 years. So being very aware of finances and still saving for retirement, making as well-informed choices as we could, really set the stage for me to be where I am now and to then work in a conference office and work with clergy who are just starting their career and starting to think about the resources Wespath offers, the resources within annual conferences and how to tap into those and really utilize them to the best.
Yeah. I tell my congregation most weeks when they say, oh, that was a great sermon, Pastor. I say, great, it was for me, not you. Right? I often preach to myself. Yeah. And I say that because the theology that we teach and we preach and we live and we talk about the abundance of God's grace and the abundance that we have, that's something that I try and carry into my own personal finances, is that we carry the two sides of that coin that Wesley taught us to be responsible, to save, to take care, to plan for emergencies. But at the same time, we have to understand and live like we live with God's abundance. And so how can we give generously and serve with our resources and then still hold that intention? Yeah. I get it right less than I get it, or get it wrong more than I get it right, but I'm continuing to grow and learn about how to balance abundance and being responsible saving as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good because it's continual learning. It's also a very Methodist thing. This like onward towards perfection, this idea that this is not a one and done, right? We don't take one workshop, we don't have one visit with our financial advisors. This is an ongoing thing. It's a constant learning process. And it's an active process that we all have to be kind of engaged in. So, I guess what some people, I mean, you have a very unique experience in that you started thinking about this young, right? But some people don't come from an experience where this is part of the culture, right? Or this is something that's understood. One of the things I often say, I wish I would have known this when I had started, right? When you're like, start from the beginning. So, what would be one thing you wish someone had told you earlier on, or one thing you wish that, maybe it already existed, that we could think about, what we could add to our system in the church and the conferences? What is one thing that you wish you would have known?
Yeah, so I alluded to this earlier, but a lot of that for me is just knowing some of those unique clergy situations. But I would also add to that just a realization that the decisions that you make very early on are going to have ramifications for years to come. Thinking about, retirement contributions and, all of those decisions that seem pretty inconsequential now, those are going to set the stage for the rest of your career and on into retirement. So I always think that's really helpful advice, is to be thinking about that early in the process.
Right, and to have the conversations about the impact long-term, right? And I, again, as a church, I don't think that and maybe in the last several years, has not necessarily been part of our culture as we are integrating new leaders into our systems. But with these changes, it would be extremely helpful to begin to think from that point. What is the long-term impact if I do this, if I don't do that? And that's part of the evaluative, like the self-evaluation that all of our clergy, but all of our leaders in the church should be doing on a regular basis.
I had a professor who talked to us when we graduated of give yourself a 10% raise based on what your expenses are in grad school. I did not follow the 10% raise. I did more of a 20% raise. But it grounded us in what does it cost to live in grad school? And if I just do a slight increase on that once I've graduated, how much that leaves me to save for retirement, for my health, for an emergency fund, and really thinking about freeing up those resources to do other things.
Wow, that's a good example.
Yeah, I think you hit on it when what's it to come from a culture that maybe doesn't prioritize that kind of stuff. I grew up in Southern Appalachia, and I missed, I think, so many of the terminology even. Special shout out to Isla School of Theology and their spiritually integrated financial resiliency, or CIPHER program. I learned a good chunk that I didn't get growing up there, but I would continue to support conferences, organizations like Wespath, seminaries, offering kind of the primer on what's a 403B, who of my staff is exempt or non-exempt, how do I help my octogenarians with their RMDs, things that just give us language to be able to be better financial stewards as leaders.
Yeah, I think that conversation I also have often in seminary where we don't have enough of those kinds of creative courses that really take these kind of admin gifts that have already been lifted that some of us really need to engage more in and don't realize how much admin work really is part of leading a church and doing all that we do, right? And so we're thinking about this not only on a personal level, but these are skills and tools that will help us make our local churches stronger, that will help us develop our leaders in our local churches, and that will essentially strengthen our church overall, I think, right? So this has been a very rich conversation, and again, what are the pieces of wisdom or things that, truths, reminders that ground us? I mean, out of this conversation, I'm taking this truth about holding this tension of having this vision of abundance, but also a very responsible kind of stewardship lens, which is, that's something that I want to grab on from this conversation, but also, what are things that ground us in this work? Transitions are never easy, and part of what keeps us going is kind of holding on to those roots that we have. What are some of those things that we'd want to share as final thoughts?
So I know for me, one of the things that I was able to learn early on, thankfully, was that as a leader, I don't have to be incredibly passionate about everything that there is to do in the life of the church. I remember.
Amen.
I just remember distinctly early on in ministry, I was working at a church plant, and for some reason, I was in my 20s and didn't have kids and was asked to oversee the children's ministry. And Needless to say, that was not my gift or my passion. But we had a retired teacher in the congregation who just absolutely loved that, and that was what she got excited about on Sunday mornings. And so by letting go of that and saying that she could just run with that and she could shape that, that let me live more fully into my gifts and graces and let her do the same. So some of the best advice that I have that I try to keep me grounded in leadership is if there's something that I'm not passionate about, there's something I'm not excited about, that's an opportunity to look for someone who is passionate about that, someone who can take that on and run with it, and for whom that will be incredibly life-giving in a way that it just wouldn't be for me.
Yeah, that's good.
One of the things I learned from a previous employer during 2020 is you can't pour from an empty cup. So making sure that you care for yourself before you're able to care for others. And that returned to me again last year at our annual conference theme of wellness and being at the well, and going back to that water cup overflowing.
Somewhat connected to that, Sarah, is the idea that through my life so far, I think I've often tried to be the leader that I'm supposed to be, and the leader that I think my folks want, and here and there. And the older I get, the more I'm learning that it's really about being the true me and the authentic representation of the image of God which I was created in, and how those gifts and graces, like kind of what we all said here, have pointed to that we can't do everything. I have to take care of myself, and knowing and celebrating who I am is how I really can be a strong leader. And I encourage future leaders to spend less time worried about what your church wants you to look like and what the Board of Ordained Ministry says you have to be, and instead, what are the gifts and graces God has given you? And that's what the church needs.
Yeah. Amen.
I would just add to that also this idea that I've always kept with me is like knowing when to ask questions, not being afraid to not know something or not be into something, and not being afraid to ask questions and find those folks. So there's hope, beloved church. We give God thanks for all that God has done, all that God is doing, and all that God will continue to do in us, through us, and if need be, in spite of us in this United Methodist Church. We want to thank you guys for sharing with us and spending this time with us. Back to you, Bob and Rachel.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives on the challenges and the opportunities as we figure out how to be the church into the future. And finances and our ability to manage with God's plan in mind, I think, is key. We cannot lead from a place that we do not live. And thank you also for the reminder of self-care as one who is called to care. We cannot pour into others if our own cup is empty. So thank you. Our next group will discuss how Wespath seeks to use its gifts to strengthen the church during this time of denominational transition. A very warm welcome to our moderator, Dale Jones, and panelists, Jake Barnett and Cynthia Dopke.
Thank you, Rachel. As you heard Andy say at the outset, this is a season of transition, a time of opportunity for the United Methodist Church. And we heard even that just from our previous panelists here, from Seth, Sarah, and John. As Wespath seeks to move forward in its key missional work that the church has assigned us to do around benefits and investments, we're also thinking about what are the ways related to our core responsibilities that we can otherwise help strengthen the United Methodist Church to live more fully into its mission and into the opportunities that this new season may afford us. Things that will complement and support and amplify the work that we already seek to do. And so in addition to strategic objectives for this quadrennium around benefits and around investment management, our board of directors also has a strategic objective for exploring how we can further help strengthen the church in ways that align with our skills and our strengths. One of the areas, Cynthia, that we've already been involved in some is in the realm of clergy financial well-being. Wonder if you could share some about that and kind of where we've been and where we hope to go.
Yeah, sure, Dale. Wespath has been involved in what we call the Clergy Financial Wellbeing Initiative, which has been a really exciting and dynamic collaborative initiative that we've been a part of for now about 10 years. It has been supported financially through the Lilly Endowment, and we've been partnering with groups like United Methodist Foundations, with annual conferences, with general agencies, and with credit unions, and with really passionate individuals, both clergy and lay, who have a heart for clergy financial well-being. And one of the resources that came out of this initiative is called Saving Grace, a Guide to Financial Well-Being. And you can see it on the slide there. It's a resource that Wespath feels is something that we can expand and promote more to really strengthen the church. Because, and as we've heard even from our YLAB members in the previous conversation, we feel that one of our contributions to strengthening the church is to help strengthen our leaders, especially in their financial well-being and their financial capacity as leaders in their congregations and communities. So Saving Grace, just to tell you a little bit more about it, is a curriculum-based study. We've been partnering with the United Methodist Publishing House through their Abingdon Press imprint, and it is available at cokesbury.com. It's designed in a workbook format for laity and clergy, has a leader guide and some video supplements and a devotional. And the facilitator guide is made in a way that makes it very easy to facilitate. You don't have to be a financial expert to do that. But it really helps congregations, and especially clergy, become more comfortable with their own finances. And it's a very practical resource. It has a lot of tools available to help you create a spending plan, make a budget, to look at your debt and figure out how to repay that. And I think most importantly, it is a biblically based resource that helps you understand yourself as a steward of God's resources. There's just a lot of, John Wesley had a lot to say about money, and the Bible has a lot to say about money. And so it really gives this holistic way of reflecting on your own relationship with money in light of your faith, and really helps deepen your discipleship in that way. Some of the topics are spending, saving, earning, giving, and eliminating debt. And so we are really looking forward to continuing to expand and promote this and making the revisions as needed. And we look forward to partnering with you on, if you haven't taken it yet, take a look at it. You can do it individually, but it's really strong as a small group study guide. And the clergy sections address some of the things we've heard about here, including taxes, setting up finances in your congregation, and really helping cultivate yourself and your own identity as a financial leader in your congregation and community. So we really love this resource and hope that you will too. So.
You mentioned that one of the topics that it deals with is debt management. We know that that's been a key issue for a number of clergy, undergrad school debt, seminary debt, that kind of thing. We've also been at work in that area and hope to do some further work there, Cynthia.
Yes, so clergy debt refinancing emerged as a real need throughout the work of the initiative. And we discovered that there were a few programs out there in the church to help clergy refinance their debt. And we decided to really partner with more financial entities as they were able and interested to do that. And so you can see this slide here. This names some of the current programs across the U.S. that offer this service. And it really, when you are swimming in debt, it's really hard to feel confident and comfortable. If your financial well-being is not where it needs to be, it can really affect your ministry. And so we have heard that some clergy who have high educational debt or consumer debt or medical debt really can use this resource, this ministry, to get out of that debt, refinance it, bring the interest rate low, and really create a pathway for you to pay off that debt. And so we are looking forward to expanding this as well and providing some matching resources for programs. We've been partnering with mostly foundations, with Preachers Aid societies, and credit unions who have that kind of capacity to offer this kind of loan reservicing program. And it's really changed the lives of many clergy who just were in a bind with debt that was becoming really difficult to manage.
Okay.
And along the lines of debt, I just want to highlight again the program Encompass that focuses on student loan repayments, and to encourage you, if you are actively repaying your student loans right now as a clergy, as you step into Compass, you can use those repayments as credit toward your 4% match. And so, and we heard Kim talk about that this morning. There's a video that you can watch again, and just keep your eye on that, and make sure you take advantage of that. So we're excited to continue working to strengthen the church through working with individual clergy and their financial well-being.
3 of these programs that you saw on the screen were ones that were already in existence and kind of gave us the model for helping 4 others, then credit unions and foundations, begin similar programs. And as Cynthia said, we have still some limited capacity to help expand this kind of thing further if other credit unions, foundations are interested in making that service available. Jake, one of the other things that we deal with a whole lot just in the course of our business is data. You know, we have lots of information about clergy and churches and all that kind of thing that we have to operate. And we also have a lot of capacity to analyze and you know, slice and dice that data and combine our data with other data and that kind of thing. And there's potentially some opportunities for us there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of topics that we've been exploring how to be of service on the data front are, one is pay equity. So when it comes to pay equity, you've heard probably this talked about repeatedly throughout the conversation. It came up at General Conference as we were talking about Compass. And we're trying to take direct interventions here where we can. I know Martin and Kim spoke a little bit earlier in the session about features like the flat dollar contribution, like the parsonage feature. But Wespath is also thinking about how can we help convene some of the conversations about pay equity that go further up the chain. Because ultimately, Wespath is not setting salaries. And so if we're not setting salaries, and that's part of what's feeding into the pay equity issue when it comes to Compass and retirement, then we see a role for ourselves, not only in helping to bring strategic insights through data, but also in convening conversations that might deal with some of the source issues that are leading to the problems that are being raised up in some of the conversations that we're privy to. Another topic that I think is really relevant is church property. Many mainline denominations over the next decade are going to face church property closures, with some projections citing a number of up to 100,000 church property closures in the next decade. When it comes to church properties, that's a topic that we understand comes with a lot of grief associated with it. These are properties where baptisms, marriages, funerals happened, and where there's a lot of love from the congregants who are still there. But one of the other conversations that we see that's very hopeful and life-giving is people exploring what's the next life for this property, whether that's affordable housing or still maintaining a worship space while dedicating more of the property space to a social service like a soup kitchen. We're seeing those conversations pop up more and more, and that's another topic where data, strategic insights, and convening dialogues with key stakeholders is a solution that we're trying to lean into within our role as Wespath.
When we look at church data, church statistics overall, we can, in some cases, maybe see a bit of a shortcoming or a retrenchment in some of the financial figures, but one of the things that we seem to be really abundant and blessed with is buildings and property, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to redeploy some of those in ways that further the ministry of the church would be a helpful thing. The other thing that that I've seen that I felt like has not been helpful to the church from time to time, Jake, has been when in settings like a General Conference legislative committee, that is maybe emotionally charged and time crunched. The church is trying to make a kind of binary, one answer fits all decision about some complex matter that needs to have a complex answer or solution. And sometimes that has come up in the area that you work in of sustainable investments. You're hoping to approach that a little differently in the time to come, right?
Absolutely, Dale. So one of the key topics that routinely comes up at General Conference when it comes to sustainable investments is paragraph 717 of the Book of Discipline. This is the one that names exclusions, that talks about engagement, that talks about avoiding, that talks about investing in a positive way. And when it comes to paragraph 717, the topic that my team and I talk a lot about is this idea that we're called to be fiduciaries, which means investing prudently for those whose assets we're entrusted with. And we're also called to aspire to align with the UMC social principles. Now there's no direct roadmap as to how to try to build that bridge. So there's a lot of different interpretations within the church about what it means to live into that principle. But even in this time of kind of flurried conversations on topics like sustainable investment, one of the benefits we have of Wespath is we've been walking this road for over 30 years. So some examples of what we're doing is we're investing in affordable housing, we're engaging companies like Dollar Tree on topics like worker safety, and we're also thinking about how can we lead global coalitions that represent tens of trillions of dollars of assets. And while doing all of that, we're also seeking to engage with our stakeholders. One example of that is we know that multiple stakeholders might see all that engagement work, but still feel, you know what, when it comes to highly charged topics like fossil fuel divestment or human rights, I still want to use broader exclusion within my portfolio. And we've created a really strong option for those stakeholders called the Social Values Choice Funds. It's both an equity and a bond fund that investors can use with Wespath to use heightened exclusion within those two areas. Recently, in 2024, the last quarter, we launched an institutional series for that fund that allows our institutional clients to invest in the Social Values Choice Fund. During that same time frame, we also did a search to say, are these still the best managers for us? On the bond fund, the answer was yes. On the equity fund, we thought we could do better. And so we hosted an entire request for proposals process and ended up working with a firm called Exponents. It's a Black women-owned firm that we had a lot of confidence would do an excellent job on implementation, and they also dropped their fees 70% compared to our last manager. So it wasn't bad on the numbers either. Within Social Values Choice Fund, the last thing that we're working on as a major update is a launch of this fund within the life stage option when we roll out Compass to give it as an option for those investors that want to use Social Values Choice Fund. The last piece, which gets back to the stakeholder engagement, is we're going to be hosting a series of conversations about 717 with different stakeholders. We're actually going to be hosting a summit with a balanced perspective of individuals who might have been those pushing us to do more on sustainable investment, as well as bishops, annual conference representatives, central conference representatives, all talking about this topic of what does it mean for us to live into this principle right now. And in addition to that summit, which we're aiming to host in September, we're going to do broad listening sessions. We want to host virtual sessions. So please keep an eye out if you are a participant and want to take part in these conversations. We want to hear your voice because we recognize that as we try to live into that vision of both stewarding these assets in a thoughtful way while being disciples of United Methodist values more broadly in the world, that's going to be done in collaboration and connectionalism with the church.
That sounds to me, Jake, like what Paul would call a more excellent way than maybe some of the ways we have practiced working with these issues in the past. So
aspiring to a more excellent way. I won't commit that I can hit that all the time.
But best wishes and Godspeed as you move in that direction.
Thank you.
This is a season of opportunity for the life of the church, and our work at Wespath really has its meaning as it enables the broader mission of the United Methodist Church of making disciples in being agents of transformation in communities and in the world. And so we'll continue to seek ways that we could help strengthen the church to more fully carry out its mission and bring about the reign of God in ways that will honor our calling as a church and all of the needs of the world. Thank you. Bob, back to you.
Thank you, Dale. That was just well said. We really appreciate the discussion. Thanks to Jake and Cynthia as well. Really such important work that you're doing. We just have two questions that came in, and maybe the first one towards Cynthia. Really a big fan of the Saving Grace program, and they just want to know if that's available for lay or congregational use as well, that program.
Thanks, Bob. Yes, absolutely. Saving Grace is available. It has two different workbook components. So one is designed for laity and one is designed for clergy. And so the curriculum is available, and we encourage and hope that it is used widely in congregations as well. It's a great way to host another study group, which is such a United Methodist core way of building community and deepening discipleship. And so the small study group model is perfect for Saving Grace. It's been done online many times very successfully. In fact, a lot of people prefer to do it online, so you can do it in person, you can do it online, but there is a workbook for lay people. And again, the facilitator guide, just to reiterate, you don't have to be a financial expert to facilitate this program. It's very user-friendly, and there are video supplements for that. So yes, the answer is yes.
Thank you. Jake, thanks for sharing about the redeployment and repurposing of church property. What are some of the other ways Wespath is beginning to identify as places we might come alongside the church in our areas of expertise?
Yeah, we had a really rich conversation about this. There's a kind of small interdepartment working group that's been having conversations about how to strengthen the church. I would say that we have more ideas than we have capacity. I'll be perfectly frank right now. We came up with about 25 substantive ideas of ways we could meet the church where they are and strengthen the church. A couple of topics that I'm not sure if we're going to work on because we need a bit more discernment time, but that I will float as areas of interest expressed by the group is, are there ways that we can partner with clergy on helping them get the leadership skills when it comes to topics like financial management, not only for their personal lives, but in their role as leaders of oftentimes what we've heard them described is they're coming in with a rich theological background into a role that's effectively the executive director of a small nonprofit. So are there ways we can partner with other groups like seminaries to help get them some of that training that's going to help them be equipped for some of the more operational and programmatic sides of their roles? One other example I'll cite is just thinking through, are there ways as we seek to help people and go increasingly online in how we're servicing and being efficient in meeting people's questions, are there ways that we can partner with rural churches that might not have the same access to technology or the same speed of internet in a way that still allows them to get the full access and benefit of Wespath services that we're rolling out? So those are just a couple of examples. We're going to be in some really thoughtful discernment as to what we move forward on. But I think in the topics of church property, saving grace, mental health, and data analytics, those are all initiatives that we have a strong conviction make good sense and are worth further exploration.
Thank you so much, Jake, Cynthia, and Dale, for sharing the ways that Wespath is coming alongside the UMC in ways that we pray will help strengthen us as a denomination as we continue to move forward. And for our viewers, thank you for your participation and questions. And Bob, this has been a great first segment.
It really has, Rachel, above expectations, and it wouldn't be possible without you, or viewers, tuning in and asking your questions, being interactive with us. So we thank you for joining us. We hope you found the information meaningful and relevant, and just be on the lookout for additional resources, a link to the recording, and a survey about your interest in future Wespath sponsored events.
And one way to stay up to date on your benefit plans and services, of course, is to follow us on social media. which highlights the latest and greatest resources that Wespath has to offer. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Stay tuned for our next segment, Investment Update, starting at 12:45 Central. This segment will include making sense of your retirement investments, a financial market update with Wespath's investment team, and best practices and consideration for your church's investments. During our break, we'll open the chat, so click on the icon to say hello, and we'll see you again at 12:45.